The story of Daniel in the lion's den is commonly interpreted as a testament to divine intervention and faithfulness under persecution. However, when examined through an esoteric and philosophical lens, the narrative emerges not as a historical account, but as an allegory for the human condition. Specifically, it illustrates the confrontation between the awakened self and the primal instincts of the unconscious mind. This video explores Daniel as a symbol of inner sovereignty, the lions as representations of the lower nature, and the den as the dark interior of the psyche, proposing that the true miracle is not that the laws of nature were broken to save Daniel, but that Daniel's inner state was so aligned with divine truth that the natural forces around him no longer posed a threat. In other words, the miracle lies not in God changing the world for Daniel, but in Daniel changing himself so profoundly that the world responded differently to him. Religious narratives, when taken at face value, often veil the psychological and spiritual truths they were designed to transmit. The story of Daniel, a Hebrew prophet cast into a den of lions and emerging unharmed, has long been interpreted as evidence of divine protection. Yet within esoteric philosophy, such narratives are read symbolically, revealing dimensions of human experience obscured by literalism. Christian mysticism proposes that Daniel is not merely a man of faith, but a cipher for the soul in communion with the divine, undergoing a trial that mirrors the inner path of individuation and self-mastery. Daniel is described as incorruptible, faithful, and unwavering in his devotion to a higher order. He refuses to conform to the decrees of the Babylonian king, representing worldly authority and temporal law. In symbolic terms, Daniel is the archetype of the individuated self, one who has transcended identification with the ego and aligned with what mystics often call the higher self or the inner logos. His continued prayer, despite political threat, reflects a deeper philosophical axiom: the sovereignty of the inner world over external circumstance. Daniel does not rebel violently. Instead, he remains still, inwardly rooted. This illustrates the Stoic ideal of apatheia, not indifference, but calm freedom from passion through inner discipline. To be cast into the lion's den is, symbolically, to descend into the unconscious, to confront the instinctual, the chaotic, and the untamed. Lions in this context are not mere animals, but personifications of the lower nature: rage, fear, sexual drive, survival instinct. They are what Jung might call the shadow, those elements of the psyche that, if unintegrated, pose danger to the conscious self. However, Daniel's survival is not the result of the suspension of natural law, but rather the transformation of relationship. He is not attacked because his consciousness no longer emits the energetic frequency of fear or fragmentation. The lions, sensing no disharmony, become still. This is reminiscent of the Eastern teaching that the realized being is no longer prey to samsaric forces because they have ceased to identify with form and fear. Scripture tells us that an angel shut the lions' mouths. In esoteric traditions, angels are not always external beings, but can represent aspects of awakened consciousness, forces within the self that are in harmony with divine order. The angel is the spark of divine intelligence within Daniel, the mediator between his human form and his divine essence. It is this inner radiance that neutralizes the threat of the lions, not through control, but through presence. This concept parallels Plotinus' idea of the nous, the divine intellect within the soul that orders chaos through its mere existence. The angel is thus a metaphor for the soul in contact with its source. Those who sought Daniel's destruction are, in turn, destroyed by the very lions they had hoped would consume him. This is more than poetic justice, it is a philosophical law. Those who live by deception and projection are ultimately consumed by the forces they themselves have unleashed. The lions, previously harmless in the presence of aligned consciousness, devour those whose interior landscape mirrors their violence. This points toward a deeper teaching, that the universe reflects inner states. When one's mind is fragmented and ruled by ego, the world appears hostile. When one is integrated, the world reflects stillness. The accusers represent the aspects of ourselves that attack truth, our own inner cynics, saboteurs, and shadows. Daniel in the lion's den is not a story of divine favoritism, but of spiritual mastery. The lions are not enemies to be defeated, but energies to be transmuted. The den is not a place of punishment, but of initiation. And Daniel is not merely a passive recipient of grace, but a symbol of one who has attained inner sovereignty. In a world that continues to throw the awakened into symbolic dens of fear, chaos, and instinctual frenzy, this story reminds us that the only true protection in inner alignment. He who knows himself need not fear the lions. For when the soul is rooted in truth, the lower nature bows.